You know, building something truly great, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. There are totally different paths to the top. And figuring out which path is yours, that can be an absolute game changer. So today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're breaking down the 3 core entrepreneurial styles.
So let's just dive right in with the big question. Which entrepreneurial style, deep down, feels closest to who you are? Just keep that question in the back of your mind as we go through this, because it's going to be interesting to see where you land. All right, here's the game plan. We're going to meet our 3 contenders, the competitor, the visionary, and the strategist. We'll get into what makes each of them tick, see how they stack up against each other, and then help you figure out which winning style is really yours. To really bring this to life, we're not just talking theory. We're looking at 3 absolute titans who live and breathe these styles. We've got the relentless Phil Knight from Nike, the iconic Steve Jobs from Apple, and the modern-day systems thinker Alex Hormozi. 3 legends, 3 completely different ways to win.
Okay, let's jump right into our first style, the competitor, and who better to represent this than the man who built a global empire one pair of sneakers at a time, Nike's own Phil Knight.
This quote, it's basically the key to his entire mindset. Knight wasn't some anarchist trying to burn the system down. Nope. He played inside the rules, but with this ferocious, unstoppable will to just outwork and dominate everyone else in the arena.
And the origin story is the stuff of legend, right? It all started with a crazy idea from a paper he wrote in college, arguing that Japanese shoes could totally disrupt the market. So what'd he do? He borrowed $50 from his dad and started selling shoes out of the trunk of his car at track meets. I mean, talk about pure, raw hustle.
So what was his playbook, really? Well, it all boiled down to a ruthless focus on sales. I mean, everything else, branding, all that stuff, it could wait. He also totally embraced controversy, right? Sponsoring these polarizing athletes that other brands were scared to touch because he knew it lit a fire under his core audience. And his management style, pretty much hands-off. He actually let people make their own mistakes, figuring it would make them stronger in the long run.
All right, next up, a completely different animal. Our second style is the visionary. And of course, it's embodied by the man who told the whole world to think different, the one or only Steve Jobs.
I mean, this quote is pure, uncut Steve Jobs. He saw Apple as a band of rebels, of counterculture pirates. He believed their greatest weapon wasn't some MBA, but a totally different way of seeing the world, a blend of technology, art, and a crazy focus on simplicity.
Yeah, we all know the story about the garage, but here's the key thing to remember. Jobs wasn't trying to meet market demand. He actively ignored market research because he was convinced that people don't know what they want until you show it to them. His genius was creating the future himself.
And its methods were intense, to say the least. He was obsessed with design and user experience. When he came back to Apple and it was failing, his first move was to slash 70% of the product line, just to force everyone to focus. And then there was his legendary reality distortion field, this sheer force of personality that would convince his teams that the impossible was, in fact, possible.
And that brings us to our final style. This one is for the modern era. It's about seeing business not as a battle or a piece of art, but as a complex game to be solved. This is the strategist, Alex Hormozi. That line right there, that's his whole philosophy in one sentence. Hormozi's entire strategy is built on giving away insane amounts of value for free. By teaching everyone his playbook, he builds so much trust and authority that people just end up wanting to pay him to do it for them. It's brilliant. But don't think for a second that this strategic mind lacks grit. Oh no, this guy started at rock bottom, literally sleeping on the floor of a gym he owned. He has this amazing take on passion. It's not what you love, it's what you're willing to suffer for. For him, pain is just the price of admission for success, so you might as well pick a goal that's worth it.
His playbook is all about engineering success. He talks about creating these grand slam offers that are just so good, you feel stupid saying no. And he builds his whole model around leverage, using other people's time, money, and platforms to grow like crazy. For Hormozi, it's not about being a genius, it's about building unstoppable momentum.
So there you have it. We've got Knight the competitor, Jobs the visionary, and Hormozi the strategist. Now let's do something really fun. Let's put them all side by side and see how these completely different philosophies really stack up.
So how do they tackle the big stuff? You know, the fundamentals, like dealing with failure, managing people. What's their core strategy? This is where you really start to see the fascinating differences.
Okay, And this slide, this is where it all just clicks into place. Just look at how they handled failure. For Knight, it was like, hey, you only have to succeed the last time. For Jobs, failure was just part of the deal. You can't innovate without it. And for Hormozy, it's just a numbers game. Volume beats math, so enough tries will eventually crush any single loss. I mean, from their main focus to how they manage their teams, their playbooks could not be more different. So after seeing these three titans go head-to-head, we're back to you. And look, the point of all this isn't to crown one of them as the best. The real question, the only one that matters is, which one are you? And this, right here, is probably the most important takeaway of all. Trying to be Steve Jobs when you're a natural Phil Knight is a recipe for misery and failure. Real lasting success comes from knowing yourself, from figuring out your own entrepreneurial DNA, and then just going all in on it.
So how do you find your path? Well, it's pretty simple, even if it's not easy. First, you gotta know your drive. What fuels you? Is it the thrill of competition, a crystal clear vision nobody else sees, or the satisfaction of solving a complex puzzle? Once you know that, you can pick your path. And then, you just gotta make your move with massive, focused action that feels right for you.
And that brings us to the final thought. You've seen the playbooks. You've hopefully got a better sense of your own internal drive. So let's get practical. If you were to make one move, just one single move right now, that was perfectly in line with your style, what would it be?